So what is aperture? Aperture, otherwise known as f-stop, otherwise known as the speed of a lens. So when someone says how fast is this lens, they're referring to the aperture. It refers to the aperture blades inside of the lens and how open wide or how closed they are. The typical aperture range on a lens is anywhere from f1.2 to about f22. Although the cost of a lens significantly rises as it has a wider aperture. For example, the Canon 50mm f1.2 versus the Canon 50mm f1.8, the difference in cost is about $1,700, and one of them is a $1,900 lens. Having a wider aperture means the aperture blades inside the camera open wider, which means more light can get let into the sensor. Having a wider aperture is beneficial when you're taking photos because it allows more light to be let into the sensor and allows you to shoot in lower light scenarios without having to boost your ISO or change your shutter speed in order to shoot in low light. There is a side effect with adjusting the aperture of a lens though, and that is that your depth of field will change. A wider aperture, something like f1.8, is going to have a very shallow depth of field. This means that the focus range of the lens is going to be very shallow. But if you have a smaller aperture, something like f8, the focus range is going to be wider, it's going to be longer, your depth of field is going to be bigger. So as an example here, let's take a look at these Hot Wheels cars, which are placed exactly 12 inches apart. And this lens that I have goes to f1.8. So here's what happens when I focus on the green Volkswagen Hot Wheel that's at the very front shooting at f1.8. You'll see that the car in the background is very, very blurred out. It's completely out of focus. Now, in the same exact camera position as I move up through the f-stops here, you'll notice that the car in the background seems to be more and more in focus every single time I take the picture. And there at f16, which is what this lens maxes out at, you can see that the red Hot Wheels Mustang in the background becomes almost clear. Aperture is a very fun thing to mess around with, even if you're just shooting Hot Wheels cars. It's something you have to keep in mind for every single photo. And as soon as you do get the hang of it, you can take some pretty cool pictures.